I got here in '74. I'd escaped from Miami. I mean, like, by the time I left, I'd been fired from my job. It was a very weird situation. I told a coworker about me being gay, and she told my supervisor. And the supervisor was a Southern Baptist, and they didn't fire me, they transferred me, except there wasn't anywhere for me to transfer to. So I was simply in limbo with no real job. Any clubs one went into between 12:30 and 2 o'clock, the police would come in bumping into people in their big butch way with the guns and their 50 pounds of armor. Cops would be outside taking down license plate numbers, and if you worked for the city and county of Dade, you could be fired for being gay, you know, just for basically doing paperwork. It was, you know, what I came from was like, if you know anything about Miami, you know it's the craziest foreign country you could ever visit. I mean, little wooden ships crack up in the water, cocaine washes up on the beach, 65-year-old women. Thank you.
Araju.
65-year-old women in mini dresses and big fur coats walking in 90-degree heat, looking like old beavers. And basically what used to be a swamp, people practice voodoo, or what's called Santeria. It's a Central South American thing, Cuban thing. So it's not uncommon for someone to go to a funeral with a frozen chicken and beat the corpse. It's also not uncommon to look on the steps of City Hall and see severed pigeons' heads with a safety pin through their head and the name of the arresting DA.
I've seen that.
I got to, like, I guess it was 5 days later, I got to the San Francisco bus station. There was this kid in front of me with a backpack, and these cops roll by, and he yells at the cops, "Hey, a faggot just tried to pick me up," and the cop yelled back, "Don't worry, there'll be another one along in a minute or two." I knew I was in the right town. I knew this was the place for me. Well, you know, all the kids I grew up with, they're all like actors, whatever. They're all box office managers now, so I get free tickets to everything. And I take all my friends, you know. I mean, God, if I had kids or whatever, you know, if it was a different light, it would be like, you know, ball and chain around the ankle. There's just all of this stuff you can't do. I think there's others, you know, hopefully other feelings and needs that are met by having children, like, you know, someone to look after you when you're older, and a real connection, you know.
I don't know, but I believe you.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I think that we can all get that. I had, you know, I mean, I can honestly say I believe if a cockroach probably would have been a better mother than the one I had. But I had a grandmother that was an excellent, funny, warm human being, and she died early in my childhood, but took care of me until then. And what I'm saying is, you can, you know, like if you see where the love is and you gravitate to it, it doesn't necessarily have to be your relatives. You know, it can be friends. And I don't want to be corny, but I know this is going to sound California, but how does it go? The source of the milk of human kindness is always changing.
So, compare...
Is that for me?
Yes, that is.
Oh, happy day.
You need some water.
Mm-hmm.
You want a sip of wine? It's like...
If I drink, I turn the turntables into a record lathe, you know? So that's no good.
Ham-fisted.
Huh?
Ham-fisted.
You know, like if you live in this town, like I think it was 3 days ago, I saw it was like mid-afternoon, everybody's going around in business suits, and here's this tranny with a whip, you know? And she's, you know, just with a whip, full-on whip, and nobody stares except for me, you know, not because she was a tranny, but because she's carrying a whip during business hours. You know, I'm wondering, like, oh, you know, it's like, Shirley's back, get busy.
I was going to say, might be doing some business.
You know, I hope you have that collating gun done, but she's come with a whip, you know.
Dead Xerox in motion.
But I think, you know, recently we had a murder of a transgendered kid, 17 years old, boy living as a girl, identified herself as Gwen Araju. And what happened, this is like a little amazing thing, and this is like where I'm coming from when, you know, when I say in 1972 we walked down through South Beach with a sign that just said gay, and that was, 17 years old, and she'd had sex with these thugs, ongoing, a few times. Now, what had happened? She was at a party having sex with one of them, and one of the girlfriends came in and lifted up Gwen's skirt to expose her stick pussy. So the guy, basically the guys had what's called a homosexual panic and killed her, strangled her, drove her into a ditch and buried her out in the outback Fremont somewhere.
What year was this?
No, this was last year. Yeah, this was last year. My point, my point is, I was reading a book about black murders in New York. They had crime photography of dead people, outlines. They throw the New York Police Department had thrown most of this stuff away. But my point, they had these cursory biographies. Nothing is known about this victim. Since he was black, they didn't do anything about it. And you wonder, like, how many gay men, how many trannies, how many same-sex murders, happened before before, let's say, 1972. That nothing was made anything of, because it's just a faggot and whatever, and who cares?
That's why we have names like that. Because names allow us to dehumanize people, so they aren't really persons, and it's a lot easier to screw people over that aren't really people.
Yes.
Gooks, for as a prime.
Sure.
That's how we got the body count going. And just way before that, way after that, and on and on.
Well, ignorant people like labels. They could take a label and they can put it in their pocket, and they don't have to know anything about you. But I went to Fremont to interview people. I wrote for the Bay Area Reporter. I used to write a lot. I didn't find anything to interest me enough to write about, but I called the editor and told her about it. Interviewed these people, and I was amazed. It was like for every 10 minutes I'd left San Francisco, it was like going back 10 years in time. So by the time I got to this town, this tranny was killed in a little town called Newark, California. I remember interviewing this guy, and asking what he thought, and he said, well, as a black man, I feel like I can go anywhere in Newark, So I said, as a gay man, can I go anywhere? And he said, well, as a heterosexual, I don't feel like I shove my sexuality, I don't shove my sexuality in people's faces. And, I replied by saying, you just did. I mean, if it isn't an issue, why do you have to state?
It isn't an issue.
I met this young woman at the mall there in Newark, and she said she was a friend of the kids. The thing that spurred me to write this story was an article I read in the San Jose Mercury News, and that it was a loving article about these three guys. One of them had just had a baby that he was trying to support. The other one had nurtured a pit bull back to health. I'm sorry, but word up, society. Nurturing pit bulls and having kids doesn't make you virtuous in and of itself. I remember asking this girl, what she thought, and she said, well, you can't dress up as a girl and give sexual favors. That's wrong. And you can't wear dresses and do things to men. I go, well, women wear dresses. And she responds by saying, well, men beat women. It's common.